Hey guys, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsors of the channels, Dueling Guard, Sleeve Chief, and Imperium Duelist. Check them out in the description box down below and use code SAKO for discounts on all of them. Hey guys, Lucas Sacco here, and I'm with a tier list for the 2025 May metagame. This is going to be for YCS Providence, and I'm here with...
You're here with Logan Johnson.
Awesome. Sounds good. Let's go ahead and get straight into the tier list here. So this is going to be all of like the meta Heron traps and everything that we could really think of that may be put in this format and cards that were already on here that were too lazy to take off. Starting off with Ash Blossom, what are your thoughts?
I mean, S tier, tier 1, top of the tier. This card hits chummies. It's also just like fine going second, if not good. Hit Saji, like hit Habakiri. Very, very solid.
Gotcha. Okay. I think it's probably the same. I think that out of like the like staple hand traps, you know, like Imperm and Ash Blossom, I think that Ash Blossom started to fall back a little bit in the meta because it's not as good going second into Malice, and which is just the best deck, and that is a true statement there. But the card is still definitely needed in the format and has its interactions. I think that Cherries is homeless. What do you think about DD Crow?
I think DD Crow is pretty bad. It has some like good applications against the Mitsurugi deck. You can hit their guys in the grave, potentially preventing them from summoning back, but it's just not good enough.
Okay. So what do you think? Is it unusable? Like absolutely useless?
It's better than Cherries, but not like a lot better. It's pretty bad. It's probably tier 3,
Okay.
yeah.
This is a unique one. What do you think about Cycle Reader?
I think Cycle Reader was good in like this 3-week fake format we have right now, where it's like a lot of Fiendsmith decks and like Malice is hit, Rizal is hit. It's kind of decent right now, but post Allen, this card is just like not very good. None of the decks are really playing Fiendsmith cards. It's not good enough against Mitsurugi. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything against Malice. It's probably bordering on unplayable.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. What about Droll?
Droll's a weird one. I definitely think this card has to be in your deck somewhere, main or side. In Malice, it's kind of interesting to main deck it because you can just use it going first and Droll yourself, and it's pretty good. In Mitsurugi, it's kind of weird because like you have a really bad Malice matchup going second. Droll doesn't help that, but then when you don't play Droll, then you have the issue of like trying to beat the mirror match. So I think this card has to be in your deck somewhere. Whether you decide to main it or not is like a meta call on what you think you're going to play against. If you're going to play against Mitsurugi, obviously you want to main it. If you think you're going to play against Malice, you can't main it. So it probably falls in tier 2 where it's like fringe main deckable, you have to side deck it, worst case.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. The main thing that I dislike about Droll, and it really depends on what deck you're playing. I think if I was playing Mitsurugi Rizal, then I would definitely be maining this card. However, personally, for me, I'm going to be playing Malice, the YCS this weekend. This video should be going up Friday, and so I'll be at the venue at this point in time, and I'll have my deck submitted. I'll be playing Malice. The issue that I have with Droll is that it makes you sequence your interactions very, very weird if you are playing Malice, because you have to choose if you want to Droll them really early to stop potential more ads throughout the turn, or if you have to choose if you want to MTP them first before they get a chance to add, or how you want to sequence that. Basically, it makes you choose how you want to do your cards or activate them in a weird way in order for your card to get full value. Right? Because a lot of the time you don't want to MTP at the start of your turn to like remove a body. Just one body, that's not going to be good enough. You want to MTP something that's value, like a Splash Mage in the mirror, or like you want to move a Duo Drive, something that's kind of scary or it's a threat to you. And most of the time it's going to be after you get 2 ads, right? Or at least 1 ad. And you just have to sit there with your Droll just chilling, and it feels like a waste. Effect Veiler. This is a card that I think is a little bit better than people give it credit for. I think that currently with the hand traps that people are playing right now, their attempt is to floodgate the opponent because there are so many extenders in the current metagame that one hand trap like Veiler isn't going to stop them all the time. The only thing that I think is different is that all of the decks right now that play hand traps, they are all playing like 16, 17, 18 hand traps. I mean, the Wide Twin deck can play 21 hand traps with like 16 starters in it, right? And so I think that if your deck can play more than like 17, 18 hand traps, if it can play more than that, I think the Veiler is fantastic because this in combination with any other one is going to stop their turn, and it's going to be really tough to play through. It's also really good into a top decking grind game.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. At the beginning of like testing Allen format, I thought this card was like pretty bad, but now that I've seen that like all the Malice combos just go Splash Mage instead of Haggard, this card gets a little bit better. But I do think this card is like unplayable until you reach like you're already at like 16, 17 hand traps and you're looking for more. This is the card that you start adding into your deck.
Yeah, I agree. Gamma is broken. The problem with Gamma is that it has the driver tax, and we're never playing Delta. This guy's homeless. This card is
That
just so
card's
bad.
awful.
Awful. Yeah, we're just gonna leave these guys down here.
You can just put Gamma in the bottom row. Like, I don't think you're ever playing that card. If you're playing like a Primite deck, you can play that card because Driver's like cool in that deck, but it's unplayable right now.
That's fair. I like Mourner. I just pulled a QCR of it from locals when I bought packs impulsively. And so he's better than Crow, but it's still really bad.
This card's bad. You can't throw it at the first thing they do. You can't hit their normal
Yes.
summons with this card.
I would like to say there is a very cool combo with Malice that I may show off later next week, where you actually go for Heat Soul in your combo, and you pay so much life that by the first time you activate Heat Soul on your opponent's turn, you actually can banish it and tag it out into an IP, because the hidden effect of the card, where you'd be under 2,000 life points. The only problem with that is if they Ghost Mourner you, you will die.
You lose.
Because you have no life points. So if people start doing that, maybe Mourner will see play, but probably not.
I think you can put that card in the bottom row. I don't think that card's ever playable. There's at least 20 cards that are like 20 total hand traps. Like, this would be like your 21st hand trap or 22nd hand trap.
I mean, I'd probably say it's better than Crow, no?
It's probably better than Crow, but I also think there's probably 20 hand traps better than both of these. So I guess it just kind of depends if we're like, are we ever putting either of these cards in our deck? So it should probably be homeless.
Ghost Ogre.
Okay.
I think this card's good. I think that as people are starting to go for Splash Mage combos more and more, this card does become better. Because when they go Splash Mage effect and they target their name that they have not used yet, you're going to Ogre the Splash Mage right there. They summon back the name still. But now they're locked in Cyberse monsters, so Bestials are no longer extenders. But if they do have an extender, like if they have a March Hare, if they have a field spell, if they have a backup, they proceed to full combo you. So I think that it's okay. It's definitely okay into the board as well, being able to Ogre like the Allied Code when it uses the effect to revive. If they don't have anything else, it's like a good Ogre there because it ends their turn and they don't get to summon anything because it has to summon the arrows. As well as Firewall. A lot of the combos with Firewall, you actually use the effect on your turn to special from hand, so Ogreing there is not a bad point. But I think it's just too weak of a hand trap. It'll never really end their turn unless they have one card in their hand to start the combo with.
Yeah, I think Ogre is the perfect card for the tier 3 category here. It's a card that like you can add it in combination with other hand traps and it is pretty good. It can be your 20th hand trap, your 18th hand trap, whatever. But I do think there's some decks that you can build where you play like 3 Ogre, 3 Bell, and you play like more hand traps that are good on your own turn and try to pair them together to like break the board. So I don't think this is a card that'll be in like many decks, but I think there is a way to build your deck that you would want to include this card.
Imperm, I think that this is probably the best hand trap of the format. People were starting to cut this towards the start because it just like starts to play a little bit worse with Bestials, and as we were starting to test this format, basically every person was trying to shove more Bestials into their deck because it was an extender. People were going for Splash Mage more, which means the card had value, and honestly, like Bestials were just seeing more play around then. I don't know. I think this card is fantastic. It is a card that doesn't play into Talents or Thrust. It is a good 6th card, so if you draw it for turn, it's a good board breaker. I don't think there's much else to say. It's just going to be the best on Imperm for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. We don't need to spend a lot of time on Imperm. This card's always going to be good as long as hand traps are playable.
Lancia. How we feeling here?
It's probably like the best card in the game. Post side. Obviously, I think the Malice deck can play through it to an extent. There's some 2-card combos that put up like pretty good boards, but Lancia plus anything, like Lancia plus Nib is like very, very good. Even like Lancia plus Bell can get you there. Like Lancia plus a board breaker is pretty good. But the way that the meta is, Malice is like borderline tier 0. I think you have to be playing this card, and it pairs perfectly with hand traps and it pairs perfectly with board breakers.
I agree. Hey, while talking about Lancia, let's go ahead and bring Chaos Hunter into here as well. I think that, first off, for Lancia, my opinion on it, I think this card is definitely a standard card. When this deck first came out, like when Ryzeal was the best deck for YCS Anaheim format around December, I think that it was okay to honestly not play Lancia because the approaches for that deck just lost to hand traps, the way that people were playing it back then. And people did try to put in additional extenders in their deck. They were playing Sigma, they were playing Code of Soul to play through the Lancia. But to be honest, when you were playing that deck when it was first released, it kind of felt like you were just playing a roulette. Right, you were playing Russian roulette through Swiss. You were trying to see how far you could make it before you got Lancia out of the tournament. And that's just how it was. And now we're in a different state, right? Like Malice is the strongest deck. We have to play this card. It's kind of like reverse Russian roulette now, right? We're activating Lancia and we're hoping they don't have the extenders to play through the Lancia because if they do, we lose. If you have any Malice name and you have access to backup, whether it's backup itself, AI meets you, Wizard basically does the same thing as backup, you get to allied code with a red ransom and the quick play spell set. That is like 3 disruptions. 3 good disruptions. And follow up. That's hard to out. Chaos Hunter does the one thing that Lancia doesn't, and it's forever. Right? Like, as soon as you put this Chaos Hunter on the field, it is really, really tough to deal with, and I think a lot of people will be playing this weekend. There are some outs that people are looking into. I know that people are trying to play Transcode Talker, so what they're doing is they'll go Splash Mage, Effect Revive, and usually that's when you'll get Chaos Hunter, once your Cyber's locked. Right? So what they'll do is they'll make a Transcode after, they'll go Transcode Effect Revive, and they'll go ahead and link into a Topologic Bomber Dragon. And they'll have a TB11 set, or they'll have a GWC set, depending on which ones they play. And what they'll do is they'll flip that during their opponent's turn. They'll special summon to the Topologic Bomber Dragon arrows. They'll use the effect. They'll destroy the whole field. So it's going to stop whatever combo your opponent was producing at the point of time, as well as it's going to clear the Chaos Hunter. The only issue with that is it's basically 1 disruption, and that you don't have much interaction left besides your additional hand traps. And then you have to hope you have enough follow-up on top of that to push through on the next turn. So I don't know if the Topologic Bomber is the best approach for it, but it's something that people are doing. So we're going to talk about that, but I think Chaos Hunter is broken.
Yeah, I would still put it in tier 2 just because this card has way more counterplay in my opinion. And also just like the card economy is, if you're playing a deck like Mitsurugi where you have like a fair amount of 2-card combos, it does kind of hurt to like discard a card out of your hand. It also turns off like your extra Isle and stuff, so there's definitely more stipulations involved with this card than Lancia. But I think tier 2, I think everything you said is correct. I will say this card is underrated. Drawing it for turn as a 6 card, I think it can shut off a lot of stuff on your own turn, like playing into the board. But I think top of tier 2 is like a really good spot for it.
I agree. The one other thing that I wanted to point out about Chaos Hunter is that it's a dark. So if you are playing the mirror match, right, and you impulse them, you can still Chaos Hunter them in that turn, that duel. That's one thing with Lancia is it's a light. So if you do impulse them and you draw into Lancia, that Lancia is useless for the whole duel. Nib, how are you feeling?
If you're playing a deck with a lot of hand traps, you have to play Nib. You have to pair this card. This card is very, very terrible on its own right now. Every deck plays through it. Some of the decks in the meta don't even let you nib them, like it's getting no value. But if you compare Nib with Imperm or Ash, the majority of the time you're gonna either end the turn or you're gonna greatly minimize the turn. So I definitely think this is at top of tier 2. If you're playing a deck with, I would say 17 plus hand traps, it is a staple. If you're playing a deck with less hand traps, you can probably get away with outplaying Nib or playing just like a single copy of Nib for crossout, or a copy to like punish them off of like Perulia and Meow draws.
Yeah, I would probably agree. The thing with Nib is that Nib will always make it to where if you hold it correctly, it's always going to stop the allied code from coming down. There are some combos with Malice. Once again, this deck is super, super diverse. So there's a lot of different things you can do with Malice. But there's a Malice combo where you make allied code super early, and then you have a Lingaribo pointing to it. Or sorry, that it's pointing to. That way, no matter what, they can allied code negate it. The thing is that plays into like basically every other interaction in the game, right? They interact with you early, and it's cooked. And that line is pretty easy to see when it's coming if you all are just paying attention to what's actually happening in their game state. Because Malice is such a fluid deck that everyone's going to be going for a different combo at the event. So you have to be very aware of what's happening. Nib is such a unique card because paired with another hand trap, it automatically ends their turn. Like that's a quote that I stole from DB Grinder back in like 2022, I think. But he said that Nib was good because it always trades with a negate, right? And back then the negate was like Baron. It was the Brave Griffin, right? It was something that once the negate was used, it kind of put itself away. So Nib always traded at least as much as like what a Chalice would do. But if you have Nib and you pair that with another interaction, it trades with almost their entire combo, like 90% of the time. You know, especially now that cards like Crossout are kind of moved out of the format and there's not like a big punish for pairing hand traps. I think that Nib is going to be phenomenal at this event. And Nib is like one of the best cards to draw when they do Chaos Hunter you or Lancia you, because as they start to play and you nib them, it's going to clear out the Chaos Hunter that they have it, or it's going to end their turn more effectively than any other hand trap would. All right, moving on, we have Phantasme. How do we feel about Phantasme?
I'm not the biggest fan of this card. I think it's like okay against Malice. You're usually gonna draw 2 cards off of it, but the thing is like the cards that are good against Malice, by the time you drop Phantasme, they're not that good. It's kind of too late to drop Hunter. It's too late to drop Lancia. You have a card on your field. You can't activate a Chummy. Like, a Ball Drake doesn't do anything. Like, you're not pairing this with Ball Drake. I just don't think this card does enough. I would say this card is like almost unplayable, to be honest.
That's really interesting because I have a very different opinion on this card. I would push it towards like the back of 2, maybe like just the start of 3, but probably towards the back of 2. And I think that this card is not good in high volumes, but I do think that since everyone is playing Magnemite in their deck, I think playing one Phantasma on the side to pair with your Magnemite is very, very effective. Because if you do draw Magnemite, which is an incredible card, and you're definitely going to play that in your deck, and you're searching for a dragon, your options are either Druid Swarm into the mirror match, it's not the best, right? Or you're going to search for a Phantasma, which is going to let you correct your hand in the middle of the turn, so you can get rid of the non-essential cards to your hand. You can draw into things like Impulse, Ash Blossom, the other Bestial, right? Even like Bell, if you play it. There's like a lot of different good engine cards you can draw into there, or non-engine cards that like effectively help you break the board. And Phantasma is a really good body just to put on there. So I do think this card is a little bit better than maybe what you were giving it credit for.
Yeah, that's fair. I still don't think I would put it in the same category as like Nib and Droll and stuff. It's probably like in the Ogre category. Maybe you play it. Maybe there's a deck you want to play it in, but I still don't think the card is fantastic. I think it's like the cards that it pairs with, just it doesn't work together with them very well.
Sure, totally fair. I don't even remember this card's
Bottom
name.
tier.
Throw it on there. Yep. Ooh, Shifter. I think the Shifter is like a phenomenal card in the side deck. Obviously, it's a very sacky one of right now. I think that as the format progresses, we're going to see less Malice getting played because people will get bored of the deck, but also people will start to play more combo-intensive decks to like try to counter it. People will play more Memento. People will play more Mermail. People will play more Fire King. Decks that kind of just like utilize the graveyard a lot. And so in the future, I think that people will side in Shifter, side it for other decks that aren't Malice, but right now it's Malice time. Like people are just going to be playing Malice, and you're just going to have to live with it.
Yeah, I think this is the first time in a long time that Shifter isn't at the top of a tier list for one of these videos. The card is awful against Malice, obviously. It doesn't really affect the Mitsurugi cards as much as you think it would. They pretty much all trigger. They can all trigger from Banished. The Rizal cards are somewhat impacted by this, but Detonator is still going to be a problem. I would still put this above Phantasma and Ogre if we're trying to like separate within the tiers, but yeah, I think this is a very good spot. It's like a fringe side deck card right now.
I think that Bell is a card that I kind of underrated originally. I think it was more targeted towards the Malice matchup, but I think that's mainly the matchup we should be focusing on. It does have other interactions, like into Pure Ryziel. A lot of the people are going for like high draw combos. They're going for Dugaris, and they're using their last extender as node later in their turn, which is punished pretty hard by not only Impulse but Bell, as well as people are going for combos with plugin. If you have Bell for plugin, it's a really, really good interaction. It's going to stop the extra attach, as well as it's going to stop the like body that comes back. It's going to stop the plugin from putting the trap, the hole thruster, in rotation if they don't have it. So I think it's pretty good into the Pure Ryziel matchup. And then into Mitsurugi, there's a lot of different points where it can come up. You can bell the prayers, you can bell their node, you can bell their field spell, their twins. There's a lot of different things. It really just comes down to when you actually want to activate the card.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this card right now. I think against Malice, now that they're going for the Splash Mage combo, this card is pretty much always just going to be an imperm, like worst case scenario. Drawing 2 of this card is not bad if you can like hit the Splash Mage and then on your turn hit the GWC. It's pretty good. Top decking this card is good. Pairing this card with Nib is good. I also think like against the Mitsurugi deck, it's good enough to where you're not upset that you draw this card. It's usually going to trade like pretty effectively 1-for-1, and if you draw it for your turn, sometimes you can stop the Murukuma from coming out. But yeah, I think this card is like definitely better than Valor. I would play 3 copies of this before I start playing any copies of Valor.
I like Dogwood a lot. I don't know if y'all have been
Homeless
following
tier.
me for a long time.
Bottom
yeah,
tier.
Gru likes
bottom
Dogwood
tier.
too.
No, I don't like
Yeah,
this
he's
card.
real
Bottom
bad right
tier.
now. Yeah, I wonder why, man. All right, Skullmeister also goes down.
Yeah, that
he
card's
just looks
awful.
homeless.
That card's awful.
I think Magnemite's the best card ever printed.
Yeah, it's up
definitely
there.
Up here. Yeah. The thing with Magnemite, it's always going to be extender. It does imply that you have other lines of play, even though most of the time you're searching Druid Swarm. But Druid Swarm is an out to Detonator right now, which is really, really important because as we have started to progress more towards playing hand traps in the deck to counter the mirror match, the hand traps aren't very good into a Detonator, right? And Detonator is a very scary card to deal with because the Malice engines can't really play through that. And so I think that Magnemite specifically is a very, very good card to play. The reason I'm mainly talking about Magnemite in a aspect of you playing it in Malice is because I wouldn't play this card in any other deck right now. It's not a hand trap that you would play in any other deck. Kind of like Shifter, this is a card that's mainly meant specifically to be played in one deck. But when it is played in that deck, I think it's phenomenal. It's absolutely unmatched.
Yeah, this card's broken. I've been getting FTK'd by this card for like a year and a half now. This card should be banned on the next ban list. I've been saying that for months.
Yeah, about a year.
This card is
Okay, that
fake at
card's
bottom tier.
cringe.
Typhoon
Very
is awful.
cringe.
Token collector. It's a
Cringe.
sword soul card. That's a contact C.
Okay. Baldrake. I think that Baldrake is okay. He's probably over here somewhere with Phantasme. He has some cool interaction. I think that Baldrake is very, very good into the half boards that Malice makes. A lot of the time they're going for Red Ransom and Quick Play Spell and passing. If you guys don't know how that works, they go for the Quick Play Spell as their first interaction. They banish their Red Ransom. They go Red Ransom, summon back, banishes a Rabbit. Rabbit summons back, sets MTP. You flip MTB, banish the Rabbit. You have a Link monster on the field, so you get a banish. So just for going for that one Link 3, they're going to negate a banish follow-up from the Red Ransom and from the MTP. It's pretty scary. Baldrake randomly has cool interactions in that because when they do summon back their Red Ransom, you can use Baldrake pretty aggressively there. Being able to banish their Red Ransom for the second time in that turn before they're able to set a trap makes this card have a little bit of value and matchups where it usually would not. But the main thing is it's like the third best Bestial monster, right? And I don't know if we are wanting to play that many Bestials. I think we play Magnemite. We play Druisworm because Druisworm is phenomenally paired with Magnemite, and these cards are limited. They're going to be best friends for quite a little while.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're not playing Malice, I think Baldrake is pretty much unplayable. But if you're playing Malice, I think the card is like fringe borderline, like a one of side deck or main deck. I think it's fine. It can help you combo and play through hand traps occasionally.
Yeah, absolutely. Druisworm. I think
Broken.
this card is up here, probably behind Nib. I think Nib is technically a better card than Druisworm. The thing is that you need to pair Magnemite, which is one of the most broken cards, with Druisworm, and Druisworm just supplies it. It's like Gamma and Driver, right? Magnemite is equivalent to Gamma, but your Driver is Druisworm, right? That's the way I see it. But Druisworm is obviously much, much better than a Driver.
Yeah, Druisworm is essentially like an engine requirement. That card is very, very good, though. It's a board breaker and a hand trap. It's phenomenal. You'd probably be playing 2 or 3 of this card between your main or side if it was legal.
Yeah, if it was legal. Okay, Meows. How are we feeling about Meows?
I think Meows is definitely... It's probably right in that Chaos Hunter range, either ahead of it or behind it. I think it really comes down to how you're trying to deck build your deck. If you're playing a deck that has like a lot of hand traps that work on your own turn, like if you're playing Bell and Ogre and stuff, I think the Chummies become even better, as well as if you're playing like Talents or Thrust or any sort of board breaker. If you're playing a deck that has like a lot of like a higher engine count and you can't afford to play a higher hand trap count, then I think Chaos Hunter is probably better. And there is a world where you just play both, where Malice is just like the best deck in the room and you just have to side deck like 5 or 6 cards and you could play a combination of both. But I really think it just depends how you want to build your deck. I think both are like borderline equivalent.
Yeah, that's very fair. The only thing with Meows is that I think that Chaos Hunter technically has less punishes into the Malice matchup. Because like with Meows, especially if your deck is drollable, they're going to be setting in droll into you. And so they're going to be able to called by your Meows, Ash your Meows, and that Ash feels really bad because they're going to Firewall at it back at some point in time, and you got to deal with 2 Ashes instead of 1. They can droll it. Same thing with droll. Once they droll you, if they get to Firewall, they're going to Firewall, put it back in their hand whenever they do the bounce because they're going to have multiple bounces. And so I think there's more counterplay to Meows, as well as Meows is a card that a lot of the time you're shooting in standby phase to play around talents, to play around them chaining things. And so I don't know. Meows is just simply like a card that has more outs than Chaos Hunter to me. Even though Meows is like meant to increase your card advantage and Chaos Hunter is meant to decrease your card advantage but add a floodgate, I think I'd rather go with the more certain answer of adding a floodgate.
Yeah, I think that point is true. I will say that I think that the difference in counterplay is that the counters to Meows usually aren't going to like end the game. If you drop Chaos Hunter and they out Chaos Hunter, you're going to lose the game like instantly.
Yeah. Well, one thing I did want to talk about with Chaos Hunter really fast is that basically every Malice list is playing Dark right now because the mirror is a very heavily anticipated thing. So if they have an out to Chaos Hunter, like Talents or like some way that like puts it in the graveyard before they're Cyber Slocked, they can Dark it in the mirror match. That's so sad. If you Chaos Hunter them and you discard 2 cards and then they're like, okay, full combo, can I have your Chaos Hunter? You scoop, like instantly. There is no counterplay. It is cooked. All right, Fuwalos, how are we feeling? Is he broken?
S tier, yeah. Probably the best hand trap in the game right now. Probably just the best hand trap ever printed.
Yeah, this or Maxi, it's definitely one of those 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Maxi's banned, but yeah. Best hand trap legal.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
I don't think we need to explain Fua too much.
I think that Parelia is also very, very good in this format. I think it might be better than Lancia. It's a little bit more diverse. So the problem with Parelia before is that if you did play against Malice, you got one, maybe two draws depending on if they had to like Bestial, but that's really bad. You're never citing that card into that matchup. Now the deck has shifted a lot to kind of use hand extenders and search for cards that come from their hand, their combo. Like if you really count on how many cards come from their hand, it's their normal summon, Hair, Backup, Wizard. That's assuming they don't use any Bestials. That's 4 cards, right? They're all just going to deploy from the hand. Parelia is either going to make them avoid those routes, which is going to decrease their board size, and give you probably 1 draw to replenish itself for the normal summon, or like their Hair, whatever they had to do to play the game. But also, like when you do hand trap them, they have to play more into the card. They have to commit more resources, which in turn gives you more resources. So then into the Malice matchup, this card's phenomenal. Into Mitsurugi, this card is like the best chummy there is. It might even be better than Fuwalos. You're going to be drawing like 5 cards sometimes. I think this card is a lot better than it was
this card is great. It's probably the best format that it's ever had. I will say against Malice, I think you can get really creative with this card and like juice some extra value out of it, especially with like some unique combinations. For example, if you have like Parulia and Nib, there's some interesting stuff you can do where like you just don't drop the Parulia right away and you nib them, and when like you chain the like the Parulia right there, and it kind of puts them in an awkward situation where sometimes if you just go Parulia and draw phase, they just start with Underground and just like kind of start playing. It just kind of puts them in an awkward situation. Or you can even like take a risk and like drop the Nib and like hope they go like, in some of our spreadsheets, you access code the Nib away and then like drop Parulia there, or even just like dropping Parulia on your own turn. You can get creative with it and try to force out some extra value with like some added risk to it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, this leaves 2 cards left. Let's talk about Purge first. I think this card's okay. The thing is that last format, towards the end of last format, when Raziel was still the best deck, Purge was phenomenal, right? I mean, it started making Kashtira like Fiendsmith like a playable deck just because it could run such a powerful card into Duo Drive. A card that had 0 counterplay at all. You would activate it. If you used an impermanent turn, that Duo Drive exploded. It got no search, nothing they could do to stop it. Their cross didn't do anything. No way they had a cross out for it. Call by couldn't hit it. Card was great. The problem is that the cards right now that are searching, if you stop it, it is what it is. That's the same reason that Ash is a little bit worse this format than it was in previous formats. Even though it's still like a very good card, it is a little bit worse right now, and I think that kind of transverses over to Purge and makes it worse.
Yeah, I do think if your deck can play Purge, you're definitely going to play 3, and with that being the case, I do think we should move it above Valor. If Purge was generic, I would definitely play Purge before I play Valor, but I think right now I would play Ghost Spell over Purge in most decks, but if you can play Purge, you're playing it because it's just an additional hand trap that's not bad. It's just okay.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. I think that Impulse might be better than Fuwalos. What are we thinking?
Yeah, I just said Fuwalos was the best hand trap in the game, but I think I've already changed my mind. Impulse is crazy. This is like, I feel like this is the one card that's keeping Mitsurugi like from potentially overtaking Malice. I think if Malice couldn't play Impulse, the matchup would be like very, very close, like maybe dead even 50-50. But Impulse just puts Malice over the top. This card is ridiculous. Yeah, it's insane against Malice. It's insane against Mitsurugi. It's good going first. It's good going second. You can set it off thrust. There's like really no downside to this card. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, that's about where it sits. Here's the deal with Rust is that if you do get Lancian, you get Chaos Huntered, right? You get Meowsed. I will feel so confident. If I hand is like an Imperm and an Impulse, I'm going to set both. And I'm super confident. Like 95% of the time I win the game. You know? I'm going to Imperm their first line of play, right? And then I'm going to Impulse their second line of play, and it's going to explode it until it's never a line of play again. Like, it just feels so good with this card in the format. Not to mention, this card is like productively good going second. It is very good for you going into boards, especially with Nib. Nib is getting played a lot more, and the fact that you can just use Impulse as kind of like cross out for Nib, which destroys if you have a trap, is phenomenal. There is nothing that's going to match Impulse when it comes to like aggressive hand traps or defensive hand traps.
Yeah, 100%. One of the most ridiculous cards like printed in the last couple of years.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you all watching this video. If you want to check out the spreadsheets that we have for the decks, check them out in the description box down below. I'm going to plug them for like another week or so. You guys can check them out if you want. Whether you buy them or not, once again, I wanted to say I appreciate y'all. No matter what y'all do, whether it's buy the spreadsheet, don't buy the spreadsheet, you guys make a big impact on my life and the support that you show me. So I wanted to thank you for it. And I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic day. Thanks. Bye bye.